Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. How's it going?
Good, how about you?
Not too bad. Just started graduate school, so life's kind of wild. I'm trying to like
What are you
settle my
studying?
brain down. Business. Trying to settle my brain
Nice.
down, coming off of like a 8 hour day. Trying to make sure that this is
Yeah.
actually useful and I'm not just inting the whole time.
Well, well, we'll see what we can do. We will
Yeah.
see. Um, but I guess give me a quick summary of your league experience. What drove you to get a lesson today?
Yeah. So I guess I'll give you the full background, on, like my whole experience with the game. I started in beta, and then I stopped playing till like last season.
Okay,
Playing mostly support, a little bit of top, and I've been mixing jungle in a little bit more recently just to like get a better understanding of clear timings and things like that. Um,
gotcha.
yeah, so I was like pretty close to plat. I was like gold one, like 60 LP ish, and it was one of those things where I like kind of cruised from like gold four to gold one like overnight. And I don't like as support too. You get those situations where you're like, is it just is it just that I got lucky, like I got some good teams, or is it that I'm like actually doing things right? And
Hmm.
I try to be honest with myself about like, hey, um, probably a bit of a combination of both, but it probably was masking some of the issues that I should have been addressing had the climb been more difficult at the time. Um, so anyway, long story short, fell back down to like gold four. I'm back up at like gold three now, like 10 or no, 19 LP, I think, something like that. It doesn't really matter. The point is just that like there was like a 400 point LP drop over like a 2 week period. And
Yeah.
so yeah, and so like a lot of it was pretty obvious, right? Like teammates going AFK and like just bullshit. But some of it was a
Yeah.
little less obvious, and in particular games like those, it's really easy for anyone to look at a game like that and just completely discount it. Um, and so I'm trying to get a better sense of like what can I learn from these sorts from those sorts of games, but also just in general, so that I'm not just like pushing stuff to the side and blaming teammates.
Hmm.
The other thing I've done, I had like one other coaching session a couple weeks back, and one of the pieces of feedback I've gotten is that I analyze too many things. So like it's sort of like you watch skill caps, watch all these sorts of different resources, like pretty analytical in terms of like how my brain works. And the problem
Sure.
is you get like an information overload, right? I'm like looking at like the builds and like runes and like all these things at once, like jungle timings, and it's like realistically, I need to get a better sense of like what are the things at this elo at this moment that are like particularly problematic, so I can like narrow that scope down to like three focus points, or like something that's like actually manageable, as opposed to looking at like 26 points at the beginning of each game and then being like, holy shit, okay, wait, what? This is maybe not practical in terms of like playing the game and thinking at the same time.
I gotcha. Now I'm hesitant to say that thinking too much is a problem because that is the opposite problem that I have to what most students have is that they don't think enough, right?
Yeah, maybe
Um,
I'm probably coming at it from a bit of a bias.
yeah, and you had a coach that told you that. It's also that you're maybe you are thinking about too much because I don't really have a true scope because you should be thinking about builds and clear speeds and stuff like that. But I like to say that there's like to be a jungler and to be a player in League of Legends, just a jungler especially, you need to be able to plan. You need to be able to say, this is the build, this is the path, this is what's probably going to happen, this is my plan for the best course of action given that path, right? And then you need to be able to adapt it. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're struggling in is the ability to say like, okay, well his clear speed, he should be done around 307, and then he ganks top at like 245, and you're like, oh, okay, so that means this and we need to do this. You know what I mean? That
Yeah,
that
yeah,
ability to adapt and quickly adapt to new information is really what League of Legends is all about. So,
right.
but regardless, before I do too much more coaching, I want to talk to you about what we want to do today. Because uh, I advertise the live game review, and I still give my live game review all the time. It's great for a certain type of person, but it's exactly that, only great for a certain type of person. There are many
Mm-hmm.
people I've given the live game review to that don't really exhibit any, significant progress after giving it because it's a lot of information, which is its good thing, but also its bad thing, right? Like you're, a graduate student now. I'm sure you've had 3-hour lectures it can be a lot to take in and a lot to memorize. And I don't even think a 3 hour lecture does it justice, because usually when you have a 3 hour lecture, it's on one or two chapters. You're getting
Yeah.
all 10 chapters in my
Right.
3 hours, right?
Right. Right.
And it can be really hard to remember it all. It can be really hard to put it into practice, because in school we memorize things, or we get the formulas down and stuff like that. In this game, you have to know it and then do it, and then make it so much so that it's an unconscious process now, and then you work on something else,
For
right?
sure. Yeah.
And that's how we become a better player. So that it's a blessing and a curse, that large amount of information. Some people, it basically, this is the way I phrase it. What the live game review does is it will tell you why, if you follow any LCS or anything, it
Hmm.
will tell you why Core JJ is better than you, right?
Hmm.
You will have a much better understanding. Maybe he does a few things better than you, but you will know pretty much everything. Now, if that's what you want, if that's what you came here for, and if you're good at, like, remembering all those things, analyzing them, applying them to your own play by yourself, then that's fine. But the other ways that I use the 3 hours is on the other end of the spectrum. We would use 1 hour today, and that would be, maybe we just talk, or I go over a single VOD, a recent VOD of yours, and we look for like 3 to 5 things that you need to work on, and send you away with that. Kind of
Hmm.
diagnose your major problem
Yeah.
in the shortest time possible, and then give you things to work on to help that problem, right?
Sure.
It's not, you still won't know why Core JJ is at the top of Challenger and we're not, but you're improving, right? And that can
Hmm.
be a much more manageable dose to take this kind of process in. The other thing I do, which is in the middle of both of them, is I kind of combine the live game review with that 1 hour. And that would be, I watch you play a game, because the benefit of that is that it makes it very personal. I get to see how
Yep.
you problem solve in real time. I get to see how you deal with situations, and really what your major weakness is, that isn't just me looking at a VOD and trying to figure it out.
Hmm.
Um, and then I will give you, it's not 3 to 5, it's usually like, 5 to 10 things. Again, it's not the whole picture, but that's the point, is because there's a lot of that would be white noise, because at the end of the day, you're going to work on your biggest problems anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, given those 3 options, and any hours we don't use today, we can use next week or whatever for a follow up. And that's how we eventually get to a point where we have all the information we want. But given those 3 options, what do you think suits your learning style the best?
Yeah, I think I learn best by doing. Like it's always been the case. Like I was a software engineer for a long time, and like you'd sit in
Okay.
lectures and like yeah, because what ends up happening, like I mentioned at the top, is like I I do a lot of like self looks at my own replays and shit like
Yeah.
that, and then it ends up being like okay, I come away with like 30 things on a list, but in the game, right, the list is kind of useless. It's sort of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's okay. Like I can even sometimes it's really frustrating because I'm the kind of person who out loud will be like, I shouldn't go there, and then I go there, and then I
Yeah.
die. So like, yeah, I think it's sort of like maybe application and like tricks for application of the strategies that are maybe on something that would be a little bit more like general or like lecture
Gotcha.
based. I
Yeah.
don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it does, and that's one of the unique problems in League of Legends. Is if you're a soccer player, you go to soccer practice, right? And you
yeah,
practice your conditioning and your shots and your passing and all that stuff, and then you apply it to the scrimmage or the game, right?
right,
We don't do that in League of Legends. The practice tool is there, but it is not practice by any means. Like,
yeah,
we have to take our practice into that. And that's kind of the simple answer for how do I apply these things, is you look at your list of 30 things, you pick, if there's like a theme in there, you try and group them up as best you can, right?
mm,
And that's really what coaching is. That's what my job is to hear people talk about problems, to see problems, and say, what is the underlying skill that's causing these problems, right?
mm,
Because
mm,
there's a few fundamental skills, and there's map awareness, and there's your mechanics and your positioning and stuff like that. And then how do we work on that? And that's really what my goal is to send you away with today, is things you will say in the early game over my next 10, 15, 50 games, I'm going to work on this,
yeah,
right?
cool,
And you might not see a big difference, but that's kind of what I'm looking for. And that's kind of what it sounds like you're, looking for with how do I apply these strategies. But that's also how you do it to yourself, is you look at your list and you say, I'm going to work on this. And
hmm,
like, this is the goal for this game. Winning and losing is not the goal. Me improving this skill is the goal,
yeah,
right?
100%. I'm with you.
So,
I have a
but
list like that actually, and I don't know if that's a good
mhm.
place to start or if we want to just like scrap that and and have you start from scratch whatever is like I guess easier for you, or just makes more sense from where you're sitting?
Well, I mean, first of all, how much time do you want to use today? I guess the question I want to answer first.
Um, I feel like I should leave it up to you. I'm down to use all three, but I feel
Okay.
like as the coach, you probably get a better sense of like whether or not there's just certain things that are you know what I mean. If
Yeah.
it becomes really clear to you after like a game or maybe two games that like these are quite clearly the things you need to work on, and like we can come back and look at it again, then like
Hmm.
cool, like we could do like an hour or two, whatever. But like I'm happy to go the full three. I find that
Okay.
I think from where I'm sitting as well that it probably provides a better insight into any mental issues that could occur that you probably wouldn't see after like one game. I try to keep the mental like pretty sound, but like if we go into game three and we've lost the previous two, like I'm sure I'll play slightly differently, and maybe that will help you as a coach to
Absolutely.
understand what the hell's going on in my
You know,
head.
and I'll probably talk about mentality. Like,
Hmm.
everyone struggles with it, and the only problem that people run into is they think they have a good mentality because they're not that guy that's typing and giving up in chat, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, it's because I'm not him, I'm not toxic, my mental's good, right? Well, no,
right,
there's a
right,
whole spectrum of mental, and it's basically, if you're a Buddhist monk, then maybe you can be near the top, right?
right.
Um,
Yeah.
but uh, let's kind of play it by ear. We're just gonna go by honor system. Hopefully, I remember. I'm not gonna like schedule anything on the site. The problem with the site is once we lock it in, like, it's
Hmm.
going to go into my account regardless. It doesn't leave me very,
Yeah,
or it doesn't let me be flexible. So I'm just gonna not worry about the site for now. We'll schedule it after, depending on what we do.
yeah,
Um,
whatever, it's all good.
the first thing I'd like to do is talk to me about your list. What do you feel like the problems in your play are?
So yeah, I mean, the last coach gave me something that was useful. The most useful piece, I think, for someone like me who's like relatively, or I like to think that I'm relatively analytical, was a way to quickly judge lane prio. The problem facing with it we can get to in a sec, but the idea was that what does your ADC want to do? What does the lane want to do?
Hmm.
As a team, like, do you want to sustain? Do you want to poke? Do you want to kill? And like how do those things counter each other? As like a way of, as like a tool of thinking about um, the lane that you're in and what side of that you're on, and what pieces of that you have, whether you're like an all-in
Okay.
comp or sustain comp. Now I normally play Sona as support. I just have always played her since beta,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
so generally sustain is is going to be on the list as is poke. So just thinking about matchups has definitely been part of it, but it's something that I was doing before. I think the bigger things on this list, he gave me like 13 things, and so I narrowed it down to like four, which
Okay.
was harassing when there's windows of opportunities, whether that's the ADC autoing or using an ability. And I think that has been the biggest one I've been applying over the last couple of days here, just because
Okay.
I think what ended up happening. Well, we could talk about the mental reasons for why, but I think I stopped doing that as I got to
Okay.
gold one, just out of like fear or something. I don't know.
Hmm.
Getting more use out of my wards, like knowing where the jungler is, like broadly, and then placing them appropriately, and not just like vomiting wards all over the place when they're not going to provide any sort of value at all.
Yeah.
So that's been one. Pinging, like being like really aggressive with my pings, particularly with a hero like Sona. Whether that's like objectives, golds, whatever. I think one of
Yeah.
the things he highlighted is like when we did that session, I like talk a lot while I play, so like I find that to be relatively easy. And one of the things he noticed as I was talking was that like I kept being like, "Look at this guy; he's about to get himself killed," but I wasn't doing anything. I was just like talking.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's like
Pretty
ping it.
common.
What the fuck are you doing? So that's been something I've been working on. That's been really tough actually because it's requiring more APMs, obviously. And I used to play StarCraft, so but that
Hmm.
was when I was
Yeah.
younger, and
I
I
used to
didn't,
play
I didn't,
StarCraft.
I didn't have, I didn't have boomer hands back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that, I find myself dying more, but I think winning a little bit more often. Just because like I'm looking at my top and seeing that the jungle's coming through Rift Herald or something, so I'm pinging the shit out of that, and then I'm getting caught by like a Caitlyn trap in bot lane, things like that. So that's
Gotcha.
something I'm actively working on, and I'm sure I'll fuck it up while we do a live game. Uh,
Probably.
and then yeah, the last one was a little bit broader, and I don't know like in terms of like how quickly I could actively address this. I'm not really sure, but the idea of looking at things like ultimates, summoner spells, and resources before I'm down to handshake a fight. And that kind of goes into like number 8, right? Which is like just understanding what the team should be doing. So I think in a lot of ways, like getting better at pings is almost like a first step to that in my mind. Like hey, like let's get a better understanding of what's a good fight and what's not, and then we can layer in and get better at that by adding the context of like, hey, do I have my R? Do I have flash? Do I have exhaust? Whatever some other summoner spell I'm using, as like a further data point to layer in beyond just like we know that 2 of their ults are gone and we're like stacked up 5 and they only have 3 like very obvious signals that you would want to take. So those are like the 4 big ones, and then there's like a bunch of other
So that's what you learned to do via your last coaching session, right?
I don't know if I would say I learned, but like yeah, like it was identified as a problem area.
Identified. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I see. So I mean, I guess one thing I should say is there's not like one way to coach or anything like that. I've been told I approach like problems differently, and it sounds like even from what your previous coach kind of described to you, I would describe these in different ways. So basically, how I learned the game was the same way I learned when I was in school. I got a degree in biomedical sciences, and when I took like organic chemistry 2, which is the real bitch of a class, it's like I would go to the tutoring center and I would sit next to the chemistry professor that's there, and I just ask him why. Why does this, substrate turn into that? Or why does this do that? Where do these electrons go? And once I had that complete understanding, I could, ace the test now, right? And when it came to League, it was me looking at Doublelift's play, saying, why is he winning more than me? In solo queue and in his pro games, why? Like, how is he clicking? What is he doing that's making him win more? And eventually you come to these very wholesome conclusions of like that's why this is happening. So even for something like harassing during opportunities, there's a very important part of just identifying those opportunities and harassing. There's also the more deeper understanding of where should you be standing throughout the lane phase that allow you to capitalize on those opportunities.
For sure. Yeah.
That's the skill that I talked about, but I don't even know if you suffer with it yet. So I'll probably have you play a game. What I'm imagining we'll do is probably like a 2 hour. And if we have a lot to talk about, then we'll just add on the 3rd hour, but that's what I'm kind of imagining right now. Have you play a game, talk about what we see, try and build on what you're already working on, or give you strategies to do it, and save 1 hour for a future like VOD review or, further application or whatever talking we need to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Cool. So you can share your screen and hop into queue.
Cool.
And I don't know how your previous coach handled this, if he watched you play a game or anything, but I'm very, and it's not that I'm not flexible. I'd be willing to do it if you thought it would be very helpful, but generally I am against like backseat coaching.
Okay.
I'm generally against coaching while you play a game. The point of this, at least to me, is for me to get to know you and how you solve problems and how you approach the game without me over your shoulder, right? Because I won't be there for any of the other games you're going to play,
Sure. Yeah.
Do you think, or I noticed you said like you appreciate like a hands-on approach. Is that kind of what you were looking for today? Was kind of a
no, I mean, I default to whatever you prefer to do as a coach, right? Like I think one of the things that I'm just generally looking to do beyond like League is get a better understanding of what kind of coaches like really resonate with me, and so it's actually probably better, to your point, that I get, I got hands-on. If you're hands-off, that's during games at least, that's great. Like I don't really, whatever. I used to play sports for like at like college level, so like I'm used to that kind of like different styles and stuff like that. It's not going to bother me. So
cool.
All right,
we'll go ahead and hop into queue, and
can you see okay? Are you
what? Yeah, I can see everything perfect.
Cool. All right, good. Yeah.
But I just want to avoid any coaching until after this section, because anything would be biasing your play for the most part, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
There are things I can talk about, which I will right now, and that would be things like champion picks. A lot of people ask me, well, coach, what's good in the meta right now? What's going to get me to plat? Or what can I carry from the support role? And my answer is, it does not matter. I've coached Jace AD carries and Gnar AD carries and other like weird ass picks because, at the end of the day, if we put you on the best meta AD carry, whether that's like a Lulu or a Nautilus or whatever, and you trained as hard as you can and got to like a gold 3 level with it, and then we put Core JJ on the other team and gave him that 44% win rate, Tom Kench,
right, yeah.
He's going to lick you to death over and over.
Right. No, for sure.
And that's the point.
Yeah,
is it's not about the pick. Like you can make a small percentage difference, but you can make a large percentage difference if we play the game differently, right?
for sure. All right.
So,
Well, I can talk through my mindset a little bit because that's what I normally do when I'm
sure.
playing anyway. So my
Yeah.
go-to ban for the most part has been Shen. I also Caitlyn's good. I actually generally would ban Ezreal before my ADC shows because more often than not I get stuck with these clown Ezreals who try to like flash into engages and stuff. But
Mhm.
I find that Shen is more problematic just because we'll end up in like 3v2s a lot, and then
Okay.
I get ruined. Um, so yeah, there's that. And then I guess looking at our team comp, we're looking relatively late game strong here, if not very late game strong, at least in terms of what's shown. So so generally what I'll do is I'll go this build. I know, I mean, oh good, they got rid of actually Ezreal's on their team. Normally I will. Someone
You really don't like
you see
Ezreal,
this?
huh?
Well, I'm scared of your 20.5% win rate. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Um, Great. We're off to a good start here in chat. Um, so normally I'll go this build. I know that you could go like the Guardian build, and I generally also will go Athene's Ardent early as opposed to mana tier and into staff
Hmm.
with Athene's, just because I find that waiting that long for power spikes tends to really fuck me over at this elo. I totally understand why you would go that at higher elos, and actually, well, Guardian's been nerfed a little bit, but um, that's sort of like the build process I will generally do unless something egregious happens and we need like, you know, armor or shielding or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
okay. Oh, he went cleanse. It's fine.
Well, my theory on champion extends to things like items, runes, and summoner spells.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that they don't make a difference the same way your champion pick makes a difference. It's just, is Ignite versus Exhaust the reason Core JJ is beating you? Is the first item he built the reason he's beating you? Is that secret rune page he took the reason he's beating you? And that answer is no, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, for
It's
sure.
the play, and that's what I'm here to change. It's just, it's not that those things aren't important or even a fun part of the game. You know, your presence of mind cut down can be great because Sona has low base health, right?
Yep.
Like it's it can be a fun and interesting and impactful part of the game, but people rely on it way too much. They lose a team fight and say, it's because I didn't build this. No,
Right.
it's not. There's 500 reasons why you lost that fight, and your items aren't one of them, right?
Yeah, fair.
But anyway, you said you talk a lot during your games. I appreciate that because that's what I'm here to learn is why you're making the decisions you're making, right?
Yeah. Um,
So,
yeah. Cool. Okay, so Singed is running TP. Doesn't really matter. We took Exhaust for Yasuo, Singed, Ezreal. I mean, it's just good for against their team comp, I feel like. Again, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like, who really cares? But, like, the logic, I think, is maybe helpful for me just to think out loud so that I do make those, like, sort of minor decisions correctly,
yeah.
or at least as
No,
close to correctly as I can. Um, Okay, so then in terms of like our lane specifically, we need to avoid Nautilus hooks, stick to poking, and I mean, we'll see how Lucian plays, right? Like, we try to formulate a strategy beforehand, but like, our Lucian was already flaming in the chat, so I mean, who knows if he just tries to all in like level 2 and without me or whatever, so we'll see what happens. Alright, let me get my sounds to like a reasonable level. Alright. Not sure why we're picking that.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess, if we hold this. He can just play topside if he wants to. I wish this ward was a little deeper into the actual blue pit so we could see if they were still there, but I guess we'll find out depending on where our bot lane path's from.
Yep.
Tried not to panic there. Tried to use the walls when I saw Nautilus coming because I didn't want to blow a flash. It's funny, this is my first game of the day, so I'm like still like, you know, warming up a little. It's like, holy shit, Nautilus is just running at me. Nautilus warding there is making me nervous that Elise is behind us, but so I'm assuming he just walked up to ward and to try. We have Kayn down here, but okay. I mean, yeah, she's level 2, but we don't know where she is, so. Nice. I'm gonna try and push this in. We have Infernal up. I feel like we can get Prio Evelyn's down, so like, or she died. Okay, maybe just want to do that. Oh, okay, fair enough. That should be a kill. I don't know if we... Evelyn's mid. I
What
thought
do
for
you think of that fight?
wasn't a huge fan. We had no idea where Evelyn was. I was actually getting ready to flash back out of Nautilus because I assumed his hard engage was because Evelyn was coming through here. But then, I mean, in a lot of ways, I probably should have. When Evelyn didn't show, I sort of assumed that, okay, it was just kind of a strange engage, so I stuck it out and tried not to waste flash. I think one of the things I would say in the lead up was that I should have poked Nautilus out a little bit harder than I had, just so he couldn't engage. Because he like pretty much engaged there with full health. I mean, at least we rotated onto Ezreal and got him down pretty quickly. I think Ezreal. I was a little bit out of position though at the beginning. I don't think we can get this. Shit. Oh, they have a control ward and try. Forgot about that. I was thinking about going to ward it there, but it wouldn't have been a good use of time. Oh wow, we actually got kind of close. I didn't mean to take the yeah. We could reset here.
So what do you think of that fight?
I liked it. I'm a little bit annoyed that I keep getting these kills, but I thought it went pretty well for us. I was surprised they took it, honestly. Yeah. Hey, he's pinging me as if, like, I think I took it with an auto. I don't really know what else I would have done there. We wanted to make sure we got Ezreal down as quickly as possible. The only thing I could say is that we might have been able... Well, it wasn't really on us. I didn't have exhaust up. If we had exhaust up, we probably would have gotten Nautilus too, which would have been nice. But it wasn't a fight that we actively, took. We just sort of dealt with it. But I'm like pretty far ahead now, which doesn't mean as much as having Lucian ahead, unfortunately. But okay, let's. I guess Nautilus has their only kill down here, so it's in terms of like, okay, wait. There she is. Forgot about Elise.
What do you think of that fight?
I have to watch out for Nautilus's ults. He's using them as like a straight up engage. I'm used to them like trying to land hooks before they do that. So just trying to keep my positioning in mind so I can't do that anymore. Or at the very least, trying to like, I mean, I tried to move away from my Lucian when it happened, but we also weren't tracking, or I wasn't tracking Eve properly, so we had no idea if we were going into a 3v2 or not. I'm assuming they're reset. Oh. Oh god. What? Okay. I don't know what that was.
Looked like a DC more than an inch, but
Yeah, maybe.
no doctor.
Okay. No, he's still here. I mean, no, I'm gonna stay. Cloud or Ocean would be pretty good for us, I feel like. So hopefully we can do something about that. Obviously, we're not in a great position for it right now, but Gallia is saying, okay. I don't want to be the engage here, but okay, it's fine. What? Okay.
I take it you put a chat off?
I do. I'm not really interested in knowing why Lucian's running it down.
Yeah. I recommend you put it.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, really? Sure. Oh my. Oh my god, dude, I keep getting these kills with my autos. I'm really not attempting to do that. I mean, 3-in-1 Sona, I guess, is still useful late game, but I really wish these were on Lucian or anyone else. I really hope that's not why Lucian's inting, but it's not something I can actively control, so... Yeah, he's just running it down. So... Oh my god. Okay. So like on the one hand, I want to try and prevent. Oh god. On the one hand, I want to babysit this guy, but if he's actively trying to run it down, I'm kind of torn because it's like my time would probably be better spent trying to get someone else ahead as opposed to staying with this clown. Oh boy. Oh, this guy's dead. I should have run. We're just gonna go ahead and mute him. I don't know why he's pinging Frostfang. That is a standard support item. This guy's a moron. I'm gonna go ahead and try and get our mid ahead because he seems like he's somewhat coherent, and I don't think there's anything I can do to stop the Lucian from just running into the Ezreal over and over again. So whether or not, yeah. Very nice. Very nice. I probably should have backed here, but... I don't... And maybe we can get there in time to counter it. Yeah, okay. Ah, he got Rift Herald, that's okay. I'm not... What? Whoa. Ah.
So what do you think?
That felt unlucky. I mean, I kind of saw red and just like went for tier 1 mid. I was hoping, I mean, I probably didn't like switch my behavior quick enough when the team didn't come. Instead of doing what seemed obvious to me and taking mid turret, which I think we probably would have been able to get, they rotated and got blue, which to me is nonsensical. But instead of like leaving and like either going to help that or clear wards or something, I stayed and I was like the only one there, which made me a pretty attractive looking gank, I'm sure, to the Yasuo. Oh, shit. Can we please... Alright, I'm just gonna reset here. I feel like I probably could have stayed on actually to get Ardent fully complete maybe, but...
So what's your goal right now?
My goal is to get Mountain when it comes up in like 50 seconds, so I've been warding around it, getting control wards down so we have vision. Oh my... Oh yeah, no, they're right. Baron for sure. I don't know if we can do it without Lucian actually.
I guess we're gonna find out.
It's,
Rough.
I can't get that. Lucian's dead. Okay. I mean, we probably just have to give... Oh, I shouldn't use my lens there. Probably just gonna have to give Drake. There's no way we get over there. Okay, they're not gonna listen. We're not gonna go that way though. Yeah, there's really not a play here. Okay. Alright, well, we'll take that. They have Ev up, but I think we got this. I'm gonna play super careful here because I'm really squishy and I don't want to get hooked on. It's fine. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay. We'll go this right. No. What did I want to do here? I wanted to go this. I think. Yeah. I want the shield for Yasuo. He's really their only win con that's left that I see. There might be a play here. Singed is terrible. I've been farming him all game. But this is a battle of the clowns. Alright.
Like our clown.
Our clown was slightly better. They both stood there and looked at each other and... Okay, wait. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'd really like to get next dragon. I mean, I know they're only on 2, but just get rid of any sort of win cons that are left for them. Alright, they know we're here. No. I'm a little worried about Eve, like, catching me alone. Ideally, I would back, but I'm concerned that she's gonna, like, basically wait to find me alone and just grab me. Because I'm really easy to kill still, even though we're ahead. Oh, there she is. That was a terrible... Oh, fuck! Shit. It's a more minor point, but I would say Yasuo win walls and Yone's, like, whatever it is, his E. Pretty consistently go for those with my ult, and pretty consistently regret it. I think I'm starting to work my way out of that habit, but it's definitely frustrating when it happens.
Yeah.
I don't know about this. It's... Oh, okay, wait. Galio's coming. I don't really know. Like, we have Dragon up. This is just not a very good idea. Oh, they have a control ward somewhere that I missed, I think. No. Shit. Oh, that was pretty close. Okay, we definitely need to reset. We got a ton of gold here. We got Dragon. Baron's up in a little bit. So I'm going to probably go back and ward around that. I'm actually going to... I feel like Shirelia's might be good. We've been in a lot of like chase sequences, I feel like.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like being chased by Yasuo in particular. We've blown almost every single exhaust on him since lane phase. But then also Ev right there. I'm not sure if that's too much of a immediate assumption based on like the last fight, but it feels like a pretty decent buy. I think. Whoa, what the fuck? Okay. Nice wither. Okay. Yeah, we end through bottom.
Alright, that looks like it.
They're gonna go through mid, but okay. I still think we win.
Yep. I don't think Eve's gonna make quadra kill happen.
Yeah.
Well, that was a pretty League of Legends game right there.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
So tell me your thoughts on that game.
That was a shit show. Our Galio had some really good engages, particularly early that kind of offset our Lucian. So super thankful for having him in our mid lane. In terms of my play, it was pretty easy with the team comp. I thought to play around what I had available. You know, obviously Lucian dog shit. Pretty happy that we rotated away from him as soon as he started, I don't know, disconnecting or whatever he was doing. I thought Nasus had a really, I mean, getting the Quadra on Nasus at like whatever that was, like I think it felt like 15, 18 minutes, something like that. Obviously huge, and he was using his withers really well. But being able to sit behind Nasus and Galio, who were both making what I thought were pretty good decisions, or made things a hell of a lot easier. Yeah, I don't know. It felt pretty good. I definitely think the lane phase could have gone a little bit better. I'm not really. Yeah, I mean, I think we probably were being a little cavalier. Or I was being. I guess one thing I guess thinking about it now, one thing that I probably could have done a little bit better was tracking Nautilus's ults, because that was like kind of a problem. He kept basically just walking up and ulting. I think me mostly, because he knows that I'm a little bit less mobile than Lucian, and then they basically just all end, even without Eve. Eve came once, but even without her, I think we were kind of in not a very good spot. So I probably could have tracked it a little bit better just to make positional decisions based on where Nautilus was
Yeah.
standing. But yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll stop asking you to coach yourself and do.
It's all good. Half my shit is probably wrong, but appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, it's not that it's all wrong. It's just that a lot of the time, I mean, it mirrors life a lot of the time, where people see a problem and
Mm,
people come up with different solutions to that problem, and some of
sure.
them are objectively wrong, but some of them are just misguided or just not bullseyeing it. We're not
Mm,
seeing, and that's kind of why I described, like, I like to see the whole process, because then we can see what's really the problem, right?
mm,
If we know what skills make up a team fight, then we can isolate and identify which ones you're lacking, right?
mm,
So a lot of the time we come to a surface conclusion of, well, I should have stayed further back because Eve killed me. But what skills are going to keep you alive from Eve in the future that isn't just run away, right?
yeah.
Um, Either way, I'm going to share my screen. I think you can share yours. I'm just going to start talking.
Let me see if I can. Hang on a sec. Let me end mine. There you go.
And let me start mine. Cool. So I like to start off with light things. These runes don't matter. I like to start off with light mechanical things. Now, I don't usually go over this with support players, because normally those support players are playing, like, Thresh or Nautilus or Soraka or something like that, right? But
Mm,
what this is rules for auto attacking. I coach a lot of AD carries as well, and these are the rules I give to them. You are Sona and kind of undeniably an auto attack champion because
mm,
of that. So I'm going to give you the same speech I give to AD carries, because we are lacking in some of our auto attacking fundamentals.
okay.
And first thing I'll talk about are clean auto attacks. So what is a clean auto attack? Well, a clean auto attack has two parts, but the whole premise is that you're getting the maximum amount of movement or time in between those auto attacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, there is a front part to it, and that is what can be attributed to basically an animation cancel, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to be moving. My baseline, and this isn't like perfect, but it's a good baseline, is I want to be moving before the projectile is halfway there. So I
Okay.
attack and I move. And that was really fast. Like, I moved right as soon as she basically fired it, but maybe it looks more something like this, right? I attack and I'm moving, right?
Mm,
Just something like that. That is a clean auto attack. And while I have no doubt in my mind that if I threw you in the practice tool and you set up a dummy like this and I said, do a clean auto attack, you could do a clean auto attack. That's not the issue for people in League of Legends. The issue is when you get into a fight. I've seen Iron players that like CS, and they're not great, but they attack, they move, and then they attack and they move, and then they get into a fight, and man, it's like they're filled their shoes with cement, right? And they
yeah.
just stand there. And that's kind of our issue when we enter a fight, right? And
Mm,
there's a few different reasons why this could happen, but if you look back at some of your fights, it just, I think we were hitting like Nautilus or something right here. We're very much just standing still, kind of spam clicking or spam pressing buttons, trying to get our abilities off as soon as possible. Now,
mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anything really wrong with like spamming buttons if you want to get your W out, in that 0.5 seconds. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but there has to be movement. You have to realize that even if you are using all of these cool abilities in succession here, that doesn't change your auto attack timer. That is
Mm-hmm.
going to be the exact same. There is no auto attack reset on Sona, at least not that I'm aware of, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be coming out at that timing every single time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Okay.
you need to get the most movement until then. So that's the first part, is we need to make sure that we're not doing this. This is bad when I let the auto attack hit and then I move, right? I'm not getting as much movement as I could. I need to make
Mm-hmm.
sure I'm animation canceling on the front end so that I'm moving and that this is consistent even in stressful situations. The second part is kind of difficult, but maybe it's less difficult for you than it would be AD carry players, because your attack speed generally stays the same. It will change as I press this level up button, but other than that, not really, right? Because I'm not building any attack speed items on Sona. If you are, that's fine. As I mentioned, items don't matter, but
Yeah.
you probably not. So the second part is that you're timing your next auto attack correctly, because I'll show you. I will animation cancel, but I will attack too fast. And I'm not moving very far, right?
Yeah.
So I need to know this rhythm, and that's what Sona's all about, right? Music and rhythm. So I need to know this rhythm of attack, 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 attack. You can see I'm spending the absolute minimum amount of time in my animation, right? And I can throw cues in here. I can throw power chords in here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all just the same, right? And you don't want to cancel auto attacks like I just did, but that needs to be our premise. This allows you to chase harder. I don't know how many kills. It sounds like you're very averse to taking kills, but I don't know how many kills. Maybe that guy's just a little too far away now and you have to flash to finish him off, right?
Yeah.
That probably could have been avoided if we just keep up with him a little better while we're attacking him in the first place, right?
Okay.
Or if you're trying to kite away from a dangerous opponent and we attacking it back, doing the maximum amount of damage while we keep our distance is a very valuable thing. Right?
Yeah, I mean that was probably the issue in lane phase, right? I mean that's sort of.
Well, it's. I think there's one bigger issue that I'll talk about, but it's one of them for sure. Is when we fight, we generally freeze up, and that makes us a very easy target for Ezreal skill shots and for Nautilus skill shots. It also we're not getting as much movement as far as chasing them down. You know, you guys almost got that Nautilus kill on the end there. Maybe if you were closer, we could have gotten one more auto off. Stuff like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, two rules that go with clean auto attacks that are designed to help you with that is one, I want you to move in between every single auto attack you ever have.
Okay.
And even if you're like, well, coach, I want to stand right here. That's a mistake. That's a mistake. I want to be right here. Okay, well then do this.
Okay.
Like, if this is what you have to do to stay still, I want you moving, right? Your auto attack is clean even if I don't go anywhere. Make sense?
Yeah.
The second thing is one click per auto. Again, I'm fine with spam button presses because if I want to get my W out as soon as possible, you know, I understand that. What I don't understand is the, you know, more than one click, right? We need to just do one click, just be and for some people, it's kind of a confidence thing, maybe a patience thing. Is I'm in a stressful fight. I need to get my damage out as soon as possible. I need to come up here and I need to make sure I don't misclick and I do something like that. And now we're missing out on other things, you know, to compensate for maybe a misclick that we had in the past or something like that. Yeah. You need to be very patient and very confident with the auto attacks you put out. What I mean by that is how you overcome misclicking is you go really, really, really slow. And it might feel weird because, you know, your Ezreal just got hooked there or your Lucian just got hooked and Ezreal's coming to kill him. And you walk up and maybe it looks like this. I got you. Okay. Finally found him, right? But that's what you want, is because the next time you have that fight, it'll be a little bit faster, right? Yeah. And the next time it'll be a little bit faster. And soon, like now that we're working with 100% precision, I never miss this auto attack, right? Yeah. I've trained my brain to only right click when my cursor is over the target. Therefore, now I can do it quickly and consistently, right?
Yep.
Because if we don't have that confidence, if you're worried about like, well, I don't know if I'm going to hit him or not, well, then, yeah, you might like, you know, really try to get that on the right target and, you know, probably won't even work anyway.
Yep.
One more thing I want to mention is, do you use the target champions only key? Have you heard of it?
Was that the A key? I don't know. No.
I don't know what it's bound to. I bind it to A.
Okay. No, I don't.
You can check your hotkeys. It should be under this one all the way down. Target champions only. I bind it to A. I think A is typically bound to attack move. You'll have to check what it's normally bound to. But what A does is it turns my cursor red. I don't know if you're using the old cursor, the new cursor. If you're using the old one, it kind of outlines it, but it turns mine red. Now, what this does is I can only click on champions. If I right click, that is the only thing I can click on. I can't click on dragons. No matter how hard I try, I can't click on scuttles. I can't click on plants. I can't click on towers. If you've ever had trouble hitting that guy behind the tower with your power cord, right? I can hit him every single time with this because I can't click the tower, right?
Is this it's a toggle on and off then? It's not just like click and move?
In game, you can treat target champions only as a toggle. So you can do it as a hold function, or you can do it as a as this. But for Sona, if those two are minions and this is a champion, it makes it real easy to find him every time because you can't click on those. If you click here, it'll just do a move command towards them, right?
Right. Okay.
So that can be a useful thing for you as well. It's kind of necessary the higher you climb, so the sooner you can just get used to it, the better, right?
Yeah.
Any questions so far?
No, so far so good. I mean, yeah, some of this is like I'm not sure how quickly I could actually, hop into a next game and do it, but yeah.
Absolutely.
I hear what you're saying, yeah.
It's not so much the point that these are going to be easily attainable things. I kind of mentioned in my profile, if you're looking for a shortcut, I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
If you're looking for, how to take the next step to get to whatever goal you want to reach, then, we can do it.
For sure.
So along with your new movement style of mechanical play while you're in a fight, I want to give you some direction. Where should I move in a fight, coach? Well, it's actually very, very simple. And it's the same thing I give to AD carries. Now, with Sona, it might be a little different. Maybe you want to spread that, shield or your damage buff to like teammates and stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
So maybe you have to move a little bit in. But for the most part, this is where you should be moving. So let's say, and these are actually what I call the rules of engagement here.
Okay.
So these are just some general rules for auto attacking, because again, auto attack based champion, and this will also help you organize. The first rule is that I want you to input your attacks from out of range. So what that means is I don't want you to do this.
Right.
That is bad. This is good. You can move a little bit closer if you want, but then I just let Sona do the work for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I attack. This is how I power chord someone. I don't come up and like try and get an angle on him and then hit him. I don't need an angle. It's an auto attack, right?
Right.
I just want as soon as possible. And that's really the point here, is when you do this, you prevent any human error from, ruining this. I am going to attack as soon as possible at maximum range, which is my effective range, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I want to be, regardless of where they want to be, if it's a melee, and even if it's someone like Syndra who outranges you, it's still, I'd rather be here versus Syndra than here versus Syndra, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think this goes without saying, but like my concern with you saying that up front and is that like I am going to, I don't know, lock myself into something where I'm going to get like chipped down by like a Kate or something like that. After I've made that decision. Now, obviously, I wouldn't necessarily just commit to the decision blindly, but I'm curious sort of what your thoughts are around that kind of problem.
Yeah. So what? It's kind of, I'm sure you do movements like this or movements like this back and forth to kind of hold your position, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically that same thing. This is what like pro players call auto buffering, which is you're buffering either an ability or an auto attack on someone, and if they enter the range, it'll happen. So what that looks like for you is I'm attacking and moving backwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I use the attack move, so this is much more comfortable for me. But
sure.
That means that if Kate or someone ever steps forward into my range, then I hit them and I'm already out, right?
Mm.
So it's not so much that you say, well, I'm going to do it, so, I have my power cord up and I'm coming, Kate. Like, no, you're just going to kind of hang out.
Right.
And if they ever get in range, then you hit them and you back off, right?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
And I think I'll have a much more wholesome answer for you when we talk about the skill I think you're lacking in lane phase, because it's kind of related to that.
Yeah, I think what I was gonna say is that I think it's the initial positioning is actually the crux of why I'm even asking that question, right? Is I'm like thinking in terms of like doing that from like 400 feet away, and then like you're locked into walking up to hit to actually do the animation. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that for sure.
All right.
But the rules of engagement. So input your auto attacks from out of range. This keeps you safe, right? Keeps you safe, healthy, at your effective range. Everything's great. The second thing is I want you to try and stay at your effective range. And this takes a little bit of prediction, a little bit of reaction, but it's kind of, if you come up and you hit a full health Darius with your, nice little combo here, you kind of have to ask yourself, what's full health Darius going to do? He's going to say, what a yummy Sona. Going to start running at you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the prediction comes in of saying this person's probably going to run at me, so I'm going to take a step back after that auto attack. Because now if Darius is here and I'm here, I'm still good and I can do it again if I want, and we can keep playing this game, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So a little bit of prediction, and it works the same on the other end. If this is a quarter health Ezreal and IQ auto him, he's probably going to run away. So this is his max range. Then I kind of chase him down. We're kind of getting into the fundamental of basic kiting and chasing, right? But these also take queen auto attacks. As soon as that auto attack is done, I'm moving, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But the last one is where I bring in the audience participation and we have our pop quiz. So let's say that we have 80 carry, support.
Mhm.
If I, whoops, I put 2 friendlies in there. There we go. If I engage a fight, if I say like I'm gonna trade with Soraka, right?
Mhm.
And you know my trades generally, I like this trade, so I'm going to try and initiate it and fight it, right?
Mhm.
So I want to stay and keep fighting, but Soraka doesn't move. Soraka's fighting back. She's just not moving backwards or forwards. There's no need to chase or kite.
Yep.
Where should I go? Is the question. Where do I move? My rule is move in between every auto attack. So as I come up in auto attack, do I move this way towards my 80 carry? Do I move this way towards this bush? Or do I try and stay where I am? What do you think?
We're assuming it's lane phase, right? Like actual lane phase.
Yeah.
I would probably Q auto and then into the bush to reset minion aggro, then back out onto the lane.
Okay. Let me ask again. Because minion aggro, I like that. The reason I'm changing it up is because I like that answer. Minion aggro is super important, and you should care about it a lot. But how about here?
Okay.
If I trade with Soraka here, do I stay where I am? Do I drift towards river, or do I drift towards my 80 carry? What do you think? What's the best option?
I would I'd probably back up, see if she tries to Q, and then re-engage. But depends on what the other ADC does, I think.
Yeah. So I also like the answer of you'd want to avoid her abilities, but you're already committed to taking her ability. You're like, I'm just going to shield her Q, and then I'm going to keep going. Right?
Then I'd probably move. I'd probably move towards river. I don't love that answer though. Just to stay out of range for the ADC, but I'm not sure what my ADC will do in when I'm doing this.
Well, even if you don't like it, that is the right answer.
Okay.
And the important thing here is that you are isolating the target.
Right.
That's the most important thing. Is you are, while you're engaging one target, you're making it as difficult as possible for the other person to, engage as well. Now, if there's one champion in the entire game that this doesn't translate as well to, it's probably Sona, because if you do run away from your 80 carry constantly, you're going to be boom before you know it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the whole premise is that you only want to be within range of one target at a time, at any given time.
Can I ask you a follow-up question about this though?
Yeah, go ahead.
So if I'm, let's say I'm doing that, right? Like we're isolating the Soraka, I'm Q auto moving into towards the river. Doesn't that pull me too far away from my ADC to get them involved? And therefore, like, what if their ADC and their Soraka goes on me? Aren't I at a disadvantage then?
So, I mean, their 80 carry goes like this to get at you.
Right.
And you think your 80 carry is not going to do anything while they walk, like, across the lane at you?
I don't know. I don't trust my 80 carries at this.
No, I understand.
He might. I don't know.
And we're going to talk about kind of that situation of how can I predict what my 80 carry is going to do in a random solo queue game.
Right.
But for the most part, so you're kind of saying, like, why wouldn't I just run away after getting that poke?
Or at least try and like stay parallel-ish with my ADC.
So let's say this is the Ezreal, right? And I kited towards river. So what do you do if you're Ezreal? There's like minions here. This isn't like a blank wave or anything. Right?
That's a good point. Yeah, he's gonna be like CSing.
Do you W? But that's not even gonna get there. Do you E into the minion wave? Do you run over here and then Q because then you can run away from him as he does that, as he like rotates to help? Mm-hmm. That's the whole point. Is you're just making it really difficult for him to do anything, right?
Right.
And that's like, this is a skill that I'm going to talk about both ways called engage quality, because Alistar is like, by a lot of people's metrics, Alistar should be OP. Imagine how good engages are. Leona, right? When Leona gets on you, you fucking die, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But Leona has to hit a skill shot to do it, so it's okay. Well, what about Alistar? All he has to do is press W and then Q with like a,
mm-hmm. Yep.
normal reaction time, and he's going to engage on you, right? And then he even has follow-up CC on top of that. Why isn't he OP? And the answer is because not all engages are good.
Right.
How do we tell which engages are good or not? And we can apply this to your Sona, or we can apply it to the Nautilus you just fought against. What made what makes one of your Sona alts good, or what makes one of Nautilus alts good, or what makes your Sona alt bad or Nautilus alt bad? Do you know the biggest thing that determines it?
If you have a isolated target. Well, no, I mean for the Sun all, not really, but like I would say like if you've picked out a target beforehand or working with your ADC, they'll say like, okay, let's let's burn Soraka down, then we can rotate on to whoever their ADC is after. Not that well, I guess that would make sense actually, but
Well, so it's like I was describing. You're really close to the right answer. We're just not kind of saying it or addressing it, and
it's a
that
pretty
is
good thesis for gold in general.
it's it's the readiness of the follow up.
Mhm.
How close is my AD carry? And when you're saying like, hey, let's burn Soraka, and then you ult Soraka, your AD carry's ready. We're there. We're good. We know the plan, and we're gonna execute the plan, right?
Yeah.
So that's what makes it good, and that's what made those Nautilus ults not as good. Because when Nautilus ults you when he's here and Ezreal's here, yeah, he ults you, but then what? He can't reach Sona. Sona's running away, and Sona flashed away, right? Like.
Yeah.
Ezreal can't do anything to you, so he just runs at you, and eventually you and Lucian get all your damage up, and he just pops like a balloon, right?
Yep.
So that's the big deal. And for the most part, when we're talking about the skill, it's just where is your AD carry standing?
Mm-hmm.
If your AD carry is standing in range or very close to in range of a target, and you ult them, they are generally going to be able to take a step forward and follow up. Is it going to be perfect? No. Don't assume it's going to be perfect. Don't assume that Caitlyn's going to cancel her auto on this cannon to step up and trap combo with your ult perfectly. That's not going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can assume that she will fire a Q on them and fire her next auto attack because that's what most humans are going to do, right?
Yeah.
If they're this close. Now, if Caitlyn's back here and you ult this,
Useless.
I don't even know if she'd get in range for a Q at that point, right? Like she'd have to be pretty quick to get her Q off, and that's the difference though. Is where is she standing? And you also use this skill to defend yourself. If Nautilus ults me, how in danger am I? It depends on where Ezreal is, and obviously there are other factors like where Evelyn is and stuff like that. But if we're talking about a fight, if we're talking about an engage, whether your engager is good or whether his engage is good, it's about where that AD carry is standing, where the follow up is standing, right?
Yeah.
The best case scenario is that my AD carry, my follow up is already DPSing the target, right? If your team's already hitting someone and then they get Sona ulted, they just die now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
If my AD carry's nearby and this is a favorable situation, then maybe I can do this anyway, and we'll at the very least get a lot of damage on a single target in a short amount of time, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's one of those classic things like we were talking about at the very beginning of the session where it's like, yeah, when I look at a VOD, I'm like, oh, I can see that. In the moment, it's like super, super hazy. It's harder to like recognize that in like the split second that you have when someone like either pulls themselves voluntarily into that position and is way out of position. You can just sort of collapse on them, kind of like you're saying, or just generally, just like I guess like pattern recognition to be simple about it.
Yeah, and without further ado, we're going to talk about the pattern recognition skill.
Cool.
And how to improve that. And that's what I call auto spacing. So you said you watch a lot of educational content. You've probably maybe heard the term spacing or tethering. I call it auto spacing because I think it needs to be done automatically. And if you've heard auto spacing before, I can almost guarantee I define it differently. So let me define it for you.
Sure.
Auto spacing is your ability to automatically space yourself with regard to your enemy champion's movement as well as your allies' movement. And while that might not sound very applicable to League of Legends initially, I'm going to break it down into skills for you that make it very, very simple and easy.
Okay.
The first one is you need to use your enemy's movement to defend yourself and keep yourself healthy. Keep yourself 100% healthy throughout the entire lane phase. Now, that's our step one. Obviously, we will need to trade away health, but for the most part, this is just about defense. How do we play defense? And our defense was honestly not that great this game. We ate a lot of SQs, right? And that's I guess that's mostly what I'm talking about because the not alts are inevitable or point click, right?
So let me maybe tee you up for this because I can tell you what I was thinking. I don't think I verbalized it. So one of the things, maybe it's relevant, I don't know, but one of the things that I was trying to do with my positioning there is consider like basically rules of being diagonal to Nautilus. Like I was concerned about being hooked. So I'm put in this kind of weird position where neither side is a real good place to be standing outside of maybe having Ezreal trying to hit land skill shots on me instead of CSing. So I was sort of like, okay, if Nautilus is bush side on the lane, I want to be river side so that I'm not going to get hooked because he can't hook through the minions. And Ezreal's going to have to make a decision about whether to CS or shoot me. Obviously, the problem is that like I did not dodge the Ezreal skill shots, but I'm curious, like if that factors into this at all, or if my mindset there is just completely wrong.
It's so if we're talking about dodging, this is not dodging. That's not what I'm talking about at all.
Yeah. Okay.
This is defense. This is I want you to because if you're dodging abilities, depending on what abilities we're trying to dodge, you can get really good at it, but for the most part, it's a guessing game. Because if they go for
Sure.
a predict and you go for a predictive juke, you're getting hit, right?
Yep.
But that's not what I'm talking about. I want you to stay 100% health throughout the lane phase. So how do you stay 100% healthy throughout the lane phase? Let's not talk about Ezreal. Let's talk about Caitlyn. How would you not take any damage from Caitlyn?
Stay out of range. Basically.
Stay out of range. That's it, right? So now, if I said that to an Iron player, they might say, "Okay, coach told me to stay out of lane. I won't leave base. Kate can't find me up here, right? I'm good." Well, the Bronze player says, "Okay, I'll just stay really far back." I've seen Sona's play like this. Like the lane's up here, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just staying back.
Yeah.
We can very clearly see that the closer we are, the more value we're getting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how this is really done is you react to Kate's movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're standing here, we're safe from Kate, but if Kate walks up with a headshot, I just have to see this and walk away.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, right? If Soraka walks at me, I walk away. Now, we also need to do this with line of sight skill shots, which we dealt with in this lane. If we're facing hooks or Ezreal Qs or Ashe volleys or anything like that, if Ezreal walks to the side, I walk this way, right? I react to the movement, I defend myself, and I am continued to be safe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I guess what I'm thinking, the first thought that crossed my mind is maybe it's specific to the matchup we were just at, and I'm trying to solve it based on what we just spoke about. So I don't have to ask you, but fuck it. Which is that, like, let's say Nautilus. Yeah, well, let's say Nautilus is in that bush right there, right to my right.
Yeah.
So like, okay, I'm walking. It totally makes sense, but I'm walking to keep the minions between me and Ezreal. I'm walking into Nautilus. I mean, does it not matter because Ezreal's so far away from me that there's going to be no follow-up damage? I mean, it feels like it probably will be, but I see what you're doing. You're going to back me towards the turret a little bit as well.
Yeah, like if you wanted to like reduce the engage quality by moving back here, that would be a good thing. Now we also have to take into account this is half a wave. If I put caster minions here,
Sure.
you can be here. You can just hide behind minions and be safe from both of them.
Right.
But it's also like as Sona, I don't want to get into the offensive part yet, but if there's I'll put it like here so that way this bush is still a threat, right?
Mm-hmm.
But technically, if you want to be safe from the Nautilus who's in that bush and the Ezreal is here, I can stand right here, right?
Yeah.
So then what happens? He comes up to auto attack me. Well, we show him why that's a bad idea, right?
Yeah.
Like I need to stay safe. And that's really just on a very minute level why we got hit by so many Qs is because we're not recognizing this line of sight. We're not reacting to Ezreal's movement like this, even though there's a minion right there, and we eat that Q, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we react to that movement and just stay right here, then we're fine. And this isn't about dodging. It's just about preparing your defense, right?
Yeah, no, it makes total sense.
That makes sense?
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. I'm just looking at it. I'm like, oh, God, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah,
no. I'm with you.
Yeah. If you ever watch like Challenger streams and those VODs and stuff like that, and shit just works out for him, right? It's just like they get ganked, he gets a triple kill, life goes on, and you're like, what the fuck did I miss? How did that just happen, right? A lot of the time, it's the stuff that went in before the fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all the Qs he landed while not taking a single one. It's the fact that he had a potion for when that fight started, right? The fact that he had all his summoners up. He was completely healthy and had a good amount of mana. That's what led to that success in that fight. And you don't see all that. They don't show that in the montage. They just show him get the triple kill, right?
Yeah.
But it's that work you put in to defend yourself as well as aggress. Now, the problem that my students see with this, and it's a fair problem, is they say, okay, coach, I have a problem. So Caitlyn is walking at me with her headshot, and I walk away because I don't want to get hit, right? You told me not to get hit. Caitlyn walks at me because it's a headshot after all, so I walk away. Caitlyn walks at me. That's the wave, by the way. I walk away. Caitlyn walks at me. I walk away. Caitlyn walks at me. I walk away. I'm getting zoned at level 1. Mm-hmm. What's going on here, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think you can probably see where I'm going with this. And that is that At a certain point, the trade becomes favorable to you. The premise you need to see is that every step forward that Kate takes is a good thing for you, right?
Because of
Is
minion
it good
aggro?
enough? I don't know. That's for you to decide, right? What is your health, her health, your mana, her mana, who has sustained, blah, 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 right? You have to decide whether it's good or not. But let's say you decided to trade back with Kate right here, right? You walk up, you Q auto. We do that, right? Our Qs didn't even hit because these guys are here. I guess they're all champions. That's why I didn't prioritize. But anyway, I go up, I Q auto, Kate headshots me. I get some minion aggro. She gets none. I'm not really liking this too much, right?
Yep.
Let's say that I bait her in a little bit. I auto space, I back up, she comes forward. She's now right there. Okay, now I come up and do this. Well, I'm getting less minion aggro. The melees can't hit me, and the casters will probably hit me. Maybe she'll get some minion aggro. It's a little bit better, right? How about if she's here?
Yeah, right.
Okay, now I come up and trade. I'm getting no minion aggro. She's getting minion aggro. You can see, and eventually, if she's standing here, I hope you say, thank you, Kate. Let's do this again, right?
Yep.
And
No,
kill her.
that's how I would play it in top lane, basically. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's that every step forward you make them take, you can force them to make mistakes and then capitalize on them by just playing defense, right? So step one is not just defend yourself. It's defend yourself until it's advantageous for you. You should be completely healthy, completely safe until it's advantageous to you. Then you take that trade, right? Make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Step two of this skill is where we get into the difficult part of it. So we need to defend ourselves. We need to keep ourselves healthy, but it's kind of this thing I mentioned earlier. The iron player stands here. The bronze player stands here. The silver player stands here. The gold player stands here. The plat player stands here. The diamond player stands here. Challenger just stands right here, right? The closer you can be to your opponent, the better everything goes. And let me just describe a few of those things that go better the closer you are. One is your predictability. Let's say you're facing a low range AD carry like Kaisa, Lucian, those people that Sona loves to abuse, right? Let's say that you're chilling, just hanging out, and then you're like, oh shit, I got a power cord, I got some mana, I'm ready to go. So you do this, right? Well, the whole time you were running from here to here, you're basically shouting through a megaphone,
Right.
hey, I'm coming to poke it. You're that Kate with the headshot that's just walking at you menacingly, right?
Yep.
That person has time to walk away, walk to the other side of the lane, absorb your pressure with auto spacing, like do whatever they need to get out of this situation, right? Now, let's just imagine that you're right here. And like Kaisa's tried to walk at you and you auto space her, and she tries to back up away from you and you take that space back, and you're just playing this little game. And then you decide, oh, look at the time, it's Q o'clock. There's no reacting to that, right?
Yeah.
You reduce your predictability to near zero. This is how you hit really, really good players with skill shots. This is what brands do all the time, right? You've probably had the brand player that like stands back here and then walks up and W's. That's not that bad. You've probably also played against the brand player that just stands here like a psychopath and there's like nothing you can do. Maybe you don't feel that because, you know, the AD carry is the one getting pegged most of the time, but
yeah,
it's rough when they don't let you predict their movement, right? Or their abilities.
Right.
You reduce your predictability. This is how you get really good engages off whenever you want to without even having to move forward or commit flash. This is how you get consistent poke off because it really, I mean, you're running Mana Flow Band, you're running Airy, you're running Spell Thief, all things that want to be triggered consistently throughout the lane phase.
Yep.
And we poked very, very little, right? It's really that any time someone enters your range or tries to get a minion that you don't think they should be getting, they taste the poke, right?
Yeah.
And then you can go back and touch your AD carry to make sure you get your mana back. But like Nautilus got a lot of auto attacks off on minions when, you know, if this is the situation and I have more casters to back me up back here, Nautilus is eating shit every time. And I might even isolate the target, give him one more auto and back up, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're going consistently, and we just didn't see that because our offensive auto spacing is not there. That is, you need to be as close as possible to the target as much as possible. Does that make sense?
It does. I guess, you know, again, I'm thinking just in terms of that lane because it's the most recent thing we have.
Sure.
You know, if I'm standing in that front wave of melee minions and Nautilus comes running up to proc his relic shield, you know, I don't know if he's going to target me with an auto, and then I'm stunned. And then they all in me. That's what it felt like, at least. Like, I don't know how accurate that is, but
yeah. So, well, like, you know, he's running up like that. The first thing we need is queen auto attacks Because
Okay,
if
yeah.
he's walking up, let's say he's walking up to these minions or whatever, right?
Mm,
And he enters my range is about like this,
mm.
and I Q auto and I run. How is an auto attack a threat, right?
Yeah, okay.
And I would be running away kind of regardless, even if it wasn't autoless, because of that minion aggro thing you talked about, right?
Yeah.
I don't want minion aggro.
Yeah,
I want
yeah.
this trade to be as good as possible.
Mhm.
But, if you do Q auto and stand here, well, then you can kind of see how Nautilus might get auto on you, right? So if we have queen auto attacks, that's not an issue anymore, right? Now, there is an issue of like pikes and blitzes that will just like W at you or pike, ease at you, and then you're in a fight. That's kind of a different situation to judge. It's still like this is how you're going to poke them down to prevent them from doing that, and then you just kind of have to deal with it once you're in that garbage.
Yeah, right.
Flash the hook or whatever. But
Yep.
That's like the Nautilus auto at least shouldn't be an issue if we're moving and isolating targets and stuff like that, because as he comes up, I hit and I run.
Mm-hmm.
And if he chases me and tries and hooks me, then he can hook me back here away from his Ezreal and in my minions, right?
Yep. Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
So that's one thing that you get, is you get reduced predictability. What are the other things we get? Well, you get better fights. So let's imagine that Lucian here got hooked by Nautilus, and Ezreal is like over here, right?
Mhm.
You're back here chilling like a normal Sona would, right?
Yep.
So what do? Well, I guess I speed up, and then maybe shield, and I don't know, do I hit Ezreal or Nautilus? I'm not really sure. Even if I choose something, these options aren't great, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's say that Lucian gets hooked, and I'm standing right here. I'm either close to the wave or something like that. Okay, well, now I can like diminuendo him to like reduce his damage. I'm in range for exhaust whenever I need it. I can reposition for a big ult if I need it. And I didn't even have to use E. I have mana to spend on other things now.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I get way more impact in fights. And even if this is just a nuke situation, then he gets hooked and I say, okay, goodbye, Ezreal, and I kill him, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So you have more access to fights, either offensively or defensively, because you're closer. That's really a big part of what people miss when they self-judge, is they say, well, that fight went bad because, he got hooked or something like that. But what they're not asking themselves is, where were you standing when that hook happened, right? And why? Because if you were here and you exhaust all of Ezreal's damage, he doesn't die. And even if he does die, Ezreal has to chase him down and use flash. You get a kill and his flash is burned, right?
Yeah.
So it's all these little things that make a difference. So you get more access to fights. It's also that you get more access to the minion wave. If you're standing here like a good psychopathic Sona player, Ezreal will feel that. And Ezreal won't stand there just eating shit from you constantly. He will stand here.
Right.
He will queue for waves, right? When he's queuing minions, he's not queuing you. And when he's not queuing you, he's certainly not queuing Lucian, right?
Right.
So Lucian's standing here getting every single minion under the sun. Ezreal's queuing for farm and wasting his mana, or if he has tier, he's still just not pressuring you in the slightest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, he misses more farm. He has less opportunity. You have more opportunity. Lucian uses no mana, no health for any of this, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, no, totally. I guess one thing I would say is that like this strikes me as, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit based on some of the other people you've coached, over a longer period of time, that this would be something that would have initial diminishing returns by taking this on in my gameplay. And what I mean by that is like by stepping up into the lane initially without really having, I mean, I do this sometimes, right? But I don't do it enough that, it's obviously a point that we're discussing. I feel like initially similar to what I was talking about when we talked about how I'm trying to ping more often and therefore I'm looking all over the map and getting caught in shit. Yeah. That like, initially if I were to take this on my gameplay, I might go like 3-12. and I'm not sure if that's something you get like feedback about, like, oh, coach, you said to stand up in the wave and I'm getting, poked out or I'm dying more often. Like, what the hell? Is that fair or?
It's kind of fair. I've seen it in some people. I also haven't seen it in others. And a lot of the time I do see it or they tell me about it. It's that I'm dying a lot in lane, but I'm feeling a lot better because I'm pressuring a lot harder. And when I do win, I'm winning. Like, the enemy AD carry just quits the game because they're so far behind. And those are the games I'm winning. And then sometimes I end and lose, right?
Yeah.
Like, it really is that, I don't know if you know who Dopa or Apto is or was.
Dopa, yeah.
Yeah. He said that there's no such thing as aggressive or passive play. There is
Mhm.
perfect play and imperfect play, right?
Yeah.
There is a specific spot you should stand in lane at this point in time based on all the context, right?
Mhm.
And if you're standing closer, you're not an aggressive player, you're a bad player, right? And if you're standing further away,
Yeah.
you're not a passive player, you're a bad player, right?
That's which is yeah, right. Yep.
So there's a line, and there's a line somewhere that we all need to try and find. And in general, yours is more passive than it needs to be right now, right? As far as like the diminishing returns, it can be. It just depends on what you're focusing on. Because remember, step one comes before step two. Step one is defend yourself, right?
Mhm.
And if that just comes at the cost of like you not queuing as much because you're not worried about it, or like you missing things on the map because you're trying to not get hit by Ez queues, I don't think that'll be like a super big diminishing return. I don't think you're going to int because of that, right?
Yeah.
It's that once you are safe and once this is an offensive situation, I apply that pressure, right?
Yeah.
I'm pressuring as hard as I can. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean, all of this makes sense for sure. I'm trying to think one step ahead to like placing myself into situation. It's almost like a stupid exercise mentally to do, but like trying to place myself into like a game as we're talking about this to consider what I think I'll probably fuck up. But it's hard to know until you actually jump in. So
it is, and every lane's going to be different, which is why I can't teach you how to
right,
beat Ezreal Nautilus, right?
right,
Because
yeah.
you're not going to fight Ezreal Nautilus for another 100 games. So
Yeah.
I need to give you the tools to problem solve, and this is how you problem solve. There are going to be difficult ones, like Xerath support is just a nightmare. There's no auto spacing that. You just kind of have to dodge.
Yep.
But
Been there.
are going to be ones that this is very important. And now I still want you to play the rest of the game. I still want you to try and be map aware and incorporate that in your play, because you shouldn't be auto spacing aggressively when you're being ganked, right? Because if Evelyn's right here and you're in range of an auto assault, you die for nothing now, right?
For sure.
This is definitely a skill that you're map aware so that you can use it and abuse your opponent. When I've determined I'm safe based on early jungle pathing or something like that, now Ezreal's life is hell, right?
Yep.
And then Eve goes MIA. She could be on my side of the map. I'll take a more general posture. And then Evelyn ganks top, and I'm right back here. And good luck farming, Ezreal, right?
Yeah.
That's how we're playing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally does. Totally does. Yeah.
The final part of auto spacing step 3 is this. Steps 1 and 2 are all about reacting to their movement. If they run towards you, you back up and protect yourself. If they run backwards, you take that space and, make them earn it back. Make them walk at you and then queue and back up as you do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The final step is reacting to your AD carries movement.
Yeah.
As we've talked about with engage quality, you want, like, the best engage you can have is when your AD carry is already attacking that target.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not just about engages or all-ins. You can also talk about trades, especially as Sona, right? If Lucian goes for even just like an auto attack trade, right? All he did was auto attack. And you come up and you like Q at the same time. So he gets the damage buff, you get the damage buff, you auto attack whether it's a power cord or not. You win. You won the trade, right? Like no one is going to out damage that.
Yeah.
That's how we get consistently good trades, is in solo queue, is you react to their movement, right? If they walk up, I'm going to try and walk up. I'm going to be as close as I can, because every step forward I take now is a step forward I won't have to take if they end up trading, if something ends up happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's more exhausts, more diminuendos, more big ults, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Yeah. I think the tricky thing for me with that is is like when I see that in game, I know this to be true already about myself. Is I will consider like, is this walk up the right play, right? And so then it's like he's walking up into a 2v1 or he's isolating himself. I have restraint or concerns about following him into that, and I don't really know. Like it's almost like a zero. You can't win though, so I'm not really sure if that's even the right thing. Because like if he's walking in a 2v1 and I'm there, it's a 2v2. Like okay, like that's a decent.
Yeah.
I understand that argument, but then there's all the other considerations around like ability cooldowns and like is he hooked if it's a Nautilus or a Leona or whatever, Alistar.
Yeah. That line of thinking can definitely be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
This is a bad call, so I will leave them. I will leave my team to do Baron by themselves, like Lucian did, right? That almost ended horribly, and that was Lucian right? Not that he was making that call; he was just raging. But you know what I mean?
It probably would have ended the game. Yeah.
It's of course going to go bad, right?
Right.
What I will say is that you do need a faster, eject button, because as you saw here, you said out loud that this was bad, and then you stayed to help and get not ulted and die, right? Like as
Yeah.
soon as Eve's there, as soon as this is done, you're gone, right? I'm
Yeah.
out of here.
I
So
think
like
I've
you want
improved
your
on that
health.
too. So it's gotten
Well, that's
better.
good.
But yes, I hear you. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely like we need to be here. We need to give our AD carry the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he'll dodge the Ezreal ult with his E, right? You
Mhm.
don't know until you help with this fight. And then as soon as it goes bad, as soon as he gets not queued into a not ult and the Ezreal ult's on its way, see ya, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's how we need to do it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Okay. Any questions on auto spacing?
No, trying to take it all in. But yes, I get the idea. I think. Well,
Okay.
I feel like I do. Well,
All right. Well, we'll try and cool off with some easier topics because not every note I have is going to be that in depth. In fact, not I don't think any really are that in depth as my auto spacing talk. But
mm-hmm.
um, red side river ward. This was just a little thing. When you are red side and you're warding in the river, this one is okay, but I can't ever rationalize why I would want this ward versus this ward on red side because this
Mm-hmm.
just does. I see Evelyn as she comes out of this bush, right? And with
Yeah.
that ward, I don't see it. As far as like, the two gank paths you want to ward for are this one, and this ward does them both, right? And it also doesn't get cleared by a pink. So little tiny thing there. If you're red side ward there, if you're blue side, then
Do
yeah,
you
you ward
find?
here because the two gank paths are like here and over the wall into the bush, right?
Yeah, you find that ore doesn't get found when someone's sweeping. Like try.
Yeah, I mean, normally people don't like sweep try or anything. I mean, I guess like junglers
Alright.
will come through and sweep, but yeah, like if they don't come into the river, they won't sweep it, and if they're coming into the river with sweeper, they're gonna clear that ward too.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Okay.
my whole
Okay. Yeah.
point
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like
I hear what you're saying.
this won't get caught by a pink very rarely. Maybe if you pink like right here, but no one pinks there because they try and protect their pinks, right? So
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
little thing there. Another little thing, kind of exhaust usage. So Sona has an innate exhaust. The
Yep.
diminuendo target deals 25% less damage for 3 seconds, right? This is a really, really good ability.
Wait. Sorry. You think of diminuendo as being exhaust, not the E empowered, the tempo?
Yeah, I mean, it's the reducing their damage is the big
Okay.
thing.
So that's okay. Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it in terms of movement. So I'm sure that's probably why we're misaligned right out of the gate.
Yeah. The exhaust is mostly for the damage decrease, right?
Mm.
And it can make a huge difference. That's why AD carries were taking it for a while and still do sometimes, is because when Zed comes onto you, or when like Fizz jumps at you and you heal, you died, right?
Yeah.
But if he comes onto you and he deals 40% less damage during his 3-second combo, well, now you're okay, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's the whole thing, is when we talk about Ignite versus Exhaust, it's, again, I think you can use whatever you want to. I just want you to recognize that Exhaust is difficult to use and you need to really think about how you're using it, as well as using our diminuendos better as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what it is you have to imagine, when does Ezreal do his damage, right? That's the moment you want to exhaust. There was the one time where you got not ulted and Ezreal's just lining up his ult on you. Honestly, maybe the best call would have been to come up here and ult him. I don't know, because that would have reduced that damage you're going to take. At the very least, we'll talk about something else that's going to be like you should have like flashed the ultimate instead of just flashing away, right? But that's kind of what you need to think about, is if Lucian dashes in to you to damage you, and as he's going to do his auto Q auto combo, you exhaust it, you just killed him, right? Like that's going to do nothing. Now you're going to be super healthy, everything's fine. But if he does that combo and then you exhaust him, kind of like this fight was over here where Lucian died, like Ezreal came in and they were already fighting, and then we exhausted like maybe an auto attack and a Q. That's not as good, right?
Yep.
The damage the damage you prevented by using exhaust would have been easily overshadowed by an ignite. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no,
Just
this is huge. Like I said at the top, I'm not thinking. I've never thought of exhaust in terms of damage, which is my own shortcoming. I've always thought about it in terms of movement speed decrease. So that is absolute. I mean, it's no wonder you're like, wait, what the fuck? Because I'm looking at it like, oh, like I'm slowing them so that I think it was Kane can engage them more easily. That's how I'm thinking about it, not like, oh, how can I reduce the damage by 40% here? So that's that's huge.
So I'll leave it at that. Then you seem like now that you have a better perspective, you'll be able to kind of solve this problem on your own. But like especially in the mid to late game, as Q starts doing a lot less. Not that it's not doing a lot, but starts doing a lot less. The diminuendos are game winning, right?
Okay.
Like my exhaust is on cooldown, but I did that to Fizz, right as he went in. 25% less damage, plus whatever whatever AP I have, if I have enough AP for that, right?
Yep.
And that's game changing. So definitely be looking for opportunities to do that. You're going to find that some people are basically impossible to exhaust, and you're going to find that some people are incredibly easy to exhaust. Like I said, Fizz is my favorite because, unless he E's before the combo, you can still block everything else after the E, right? But Zed is not so easy because if you exhaust him immediately, then the death mark doesn't get exhausted. And if you exhaust him late, then he gets all his damage onto the death mark and, he might be dead anyway.
Right.
So some people are harder, some people are easier, but it's game changing when we do it right. Otherwise, just consider taking exhaust. Sona's a big burst mage anyway, and you can treat her like it if you want. We talked about engage quality. We talked about its use defensively and offensively. I just wanted to mention it for the not all-ins, which I think I already did, right? Yeah. It's about when he all-ins you, how ready is Ezreal to follow up? How can we decrease that follow-up with movement or with our flash to dodge the E? And, that would make just all the difference, right? Yeah. Combat movement was just why I wrote all this stuff down. I want us to be moving in combat. If you watch that VOD, you'll see that you are very static in fights, and it could be much better, right?
Yep.
Kill stealing.
I think this comes from beta. Maybe. I'm fully aware that it's really nothing.
It's also a gold thing. I'm aware, and people rage about it all the time. And so it's kind of this two things. First of all, 99% of good AD carries don't care about kill stealing unless it's super, 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 super free. If it's super free, then go ahead, trade over. But if there's any speck of doubt, just do the maximum damage possible, right? Yep. That's it. Because the more health that Lucian has, the more he can farm, the less he's going to die to Eve after this play, everything, right? Now, with that being said, you can type sorry, my bad in chat, and that doesn't hurt anyone, right? That's actually, I guess you can't because
I ping myself when I do it, which I think gets the point across.
It does get the point across. What I do say is I keep this on, not because I care what any of my teammates say. I /mute space all in the beginning of every single game, and then I unmute the pings because pings are helpful, but that at least lets me type sorry, my bad in chat, even though I can't hear if Lucian responds or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I don't know if I would do that, but
yeah. I mean, it's only 9 characters and then 5 clicks. That's all when I'm running to my place to guard the jungle.
I have bricks for hands though, man. I can't be wasting my APMs on a pawn.
You're a StarCraft player, man. I believe.
I was.
Well, I guess it depends on what race did you play. Were you a Dirty Protoss player?
I was actually.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Never mind. I played Zerg.
That checks out.
Yeah. So ult usage. You mentioned that a lot of our ults get canceled by wind walls or other abilities that kind of outplay.
I think we've gotten better. There was only one in that game where I really was like, "Oh fuck, here we go with this shit again." The big one that has been throwing me, and I think it's fair, is Young because he's newer. I mean, new-ish. To the game, and so I'm still the pattern recognition for this isn't actual, his actual body or whatever the fuck you want to call it, hasn't really landed yet. I mean, obviously it's top of mind enough that I'm talking about it with you, so I think that will go away. One of the things that I've been working on a lot, and this was actually a really easy comp for it, is waiting for other people to land their normal abilities to hold in place, whether that's Morgana Root or in this case Galio Taunt or Shen Taunt or whatever. Waiting for that first before engaging with ult. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that specifically, but
I mean, you can definitely argue that both ways, right? Which one is harder to hit, Morg Q or Sona ult? Morg Q, right?
Morg Q, but the Sona ult's on a 2-minute cooldown.
It is. So it's kind of maybe Morg wants to hold her 3 fucking second root for when they're held down instead, right?
Yeah.
So
all right.
It goes both ways. You should be able to follow up in situations. You also should be able to be that engager in some situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about a skill that helps with this, but a lot of it is just patience. You don't have to ult right away. You don't even have to get your ult off this fight. And if people pinging your ult after the fight, fuck them. You didn't see an opportunity. You didn't see an opportunity. I play a lot of MF.
Yeah.
People always ping my ult after a fight, but I play a lot of MF. If I
Yeah.
would have ulted that fight, I would have A, died, or B, they would have just walked out of it and had done fucking nothing.
Right.
So have the patience to be able to look for that good opportunity of either like, Yone's coming in, but I need to ult to save someone because he's going to kill him, or I need to, or I'll hold it because we're going to be okay and I'll save it for a better situation, right?
Yeah.
Specific respect versus general respect. This is kind of a theme that goes with auto spacing, but it's more for like a team fighting sense. It's that we like specifically your combat movement in fights was more in line with like general respect. Like you had general respect for champions like Evelyn or people like Yasuo who got on top of you, right? We flashed away and then ran away, right?
Yeah.
You need to be specifically respectful. It's that I don't want you to say Fizz is scary, and that's not that that's a false statement. Fizz is horrifying, but it's that you need to respect Fizz's abilities. Fizz's ult is scary. Fizz's combo is scary. Yasuo's tornado and ult are scary, right? Yasuo is not scary. So when he flashes on you, and you get out of and you flash away to get out of range, he's if he's still running it, you run away. But if he's not, then you're turning around, right?
Yeah.
And that's the whole point, is we need to respect specific things. And if we want to respect like Evelyn's stealth, then maybe as the fight starts, you drop a pink ward on yourself because pink ward reveals camouflage and you can protect yourself before she gets on you, right?
How much of that
So
do you
like
think
that.
is is just learned through experience though, right? Because like I'm thinking about like in terms of like I don't play mid ever, which is something that I'm trying to deal with by like playing Phil on my Smurf, which is like in silver, and so it's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But like I guess what I'm getting at is like I don't really know what the fuck Yasuo. I know his ult, I know his tornado, but in terms of specifically his ability that's allowing him to like jump up and down the wave, it's not even about Yasuo though, right? It's about like just generally like the ability knowledge. I'm able to pattern recognize like, oh, here comes the ult, or like, oh, he's gonna ult here if he gets a knock up, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like for very specific abilities, it's just not there, and I'm not sure like what one can do about that.
It is experience. Now, I don't like ever telling a student you just have to play more.
Well, yeah,
because
of course.
like a few years ago, the guy that had played the most League of Legends was a Korean player, and he played Ashe, and he was in Silver 2, I think.
Oof.
He had the most games played in League of Legends out of everyone in the world. And if you just play and you don't care,
Brutal.
then that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I don't judge that guy at all. If he was having fun, he's having fun, right? But if we want to improve these skills, it needs to be a purposeful action. And if you're not sure what Yasuo does exactly, my advice to people who don't have champion knowledge is just to play him.
Right.
Just when they're like, whenever a free champion rotation comes out and 15 or 20 free champions come out, if you have not played any of them, if you are not familiar with any of them, just play them on your Smurf, play them in a normal game, right?
Yep.
And int. And, it'll be fine because now you have a better idea why Evelyn's bursting you, right?
Yeah.
I just read, I had a student that I was coaching who played the new fiddle, and I learned like 3 new things about new fiddle that I really should have known. But it's just like if I had played fiddle, if I'd played new fiddle, I probably would have figured all that out.
Right? Sure. Yeah.
And that helps you kind of develop that. So just give them a try, or at least make an active effort to understand them so that you can play against them better, right?
Right. Okay.
So now I'm going to talk about some mid to late game themes. And the first one is your map awareness, because your map awareness is the single most important thing in the mid to late game. And the thing about it is that in the early game, I didn't really talk about this. I don't think it's an issue of yours, so that's why I didn't write it down. But you should be looking at the map every like 1 to 3 seconds, right? Very consistently, very like you're catching Evelyn every time she shows up on the map, stuff like that, right?
Yep.
Again, that's not an issue, so I wouldn't focus on that. But mid to late game map awareness, you're looking even more. You're looking 80 to 90% of the game in the mid to late game. Well, how am I supposed to do that, coach? Right? Like, I'm playing the game here still, right? Well, yeah, but let's talk about what you do in the mid to late game, and I'll bring up Rift Kit. So what do you do after you kill enemy tower here, or after you decide to abandon Lucian and start roaming, right? Well, you backed, and then, I don't know, you come up mid to help Galio, but he's just like wave clearing, and Yasuo runs away when you show up. then
Yeah.
you kind of rotate back bot to help Lucian, but then he died, so you come back, you're dropping wards and stuff, you go back mid, and maybe now we fight for dragon, and now we're fighting, right?
Yep.
Well, let's rewind. When you're in base, you're not doing anything. Time to look at the map. When you're running up mid, your time to look at the map. When you're helping Galio farm, time to look at the map. When we rotate bot, time to look at the map. When we help, run away from Lucian, all that stuff, until you get to this dragon fight, you don't need to look at your screen, right?
Yeah.
We're staring at the map because the map will give us more information. If you want to use the F keys to give you more specific information, right? Like you see, them fighting up here, you want to see how it's going, then you look up there. But other than that, we're staring at the map. The more information you can gather, the more prepared we can be for these situations. And it is the summoner that is more prepared that's going to succeed in fights, which, I'm glad you think a lot, because it sounds like you're on track to be that more prepared summoner. But you mentioned that you had already gotten kind of some talk on like ultimates and summoners and resources. I'm going to talk about kind of a different pathway. I call it team fight preparation. But I guess before I do that, what do I need to be looking at while I stare at the map?
I was going to ask you that, actually. Yeah.
You need to look at the 5 enemy champions, because now that we're roaming around, anyone could be anywhere for any reason, right? We need to look at 5 enemy champions. We need to look at our 4 allied champions. It is your job to track those 9 people. And, 4 of them can't hide from you. 5 of them can, but people are going to die. Their top laners are going to sit top lane. It's not going to be as hard as tracking 9 individually moving people. They're going to be predictable, right?
Yeah.
But you need to track them. And you need to see every time they show up on the map, notice when they go off the map, and then notice where they could be as a result, right?
Yeah.
Now, how do we use this information? Number one way is to prepare for team fights. And you can tell I'm a big fan of audience participation here. So I'm going to give you another participation moment. Let's say that's the enemy team you just played against. And it's you and Galio. And you're core JJ, and this is Jensen, I guess.
Only in my dreams.
Yep. This is you, and that's Jensen, right?
Yeah, sure.
Your teammates are dead. How do you approach this fight? This is, I don't really remember. That is Ezreal, Nautilus, Yasuo, Evelyn, and Singed. What do you think?
Backing off of that.
Hardcore JJ play it. Yeah, you back off, right? This isn't a hard problem to solve. You just eat and you run away. You prepare to flash if they're going to do something spooky, right? That's it. Well, a lot of people think that fights are either A or B, they're 0 or 1. They are, I will fight or I will not fight. But I want you to see that you have lots of different options. What if the fight looks like this? And it's you and Fed Galio. Are you going to do the same thing you did in the 2v5?
Probably not.
Well,
No.
I'm going to probably walk away-ish, but I'm not going to go in for sure, but I'm not going to run away. I'll just kind of hide behind Galio maybe, right?
Yeah.
Well, how about this? What if it's 2v2? Okay, depends on who's fed and who's not, but I might kind of creep up, might try and get some poke, look for an ult if I feel like it, right? What if it's this? Well, now I'm looking for an ult because this is now a pick, right? So I want you to see that there's a whole spectrum of choices you can make. And if I made these 2v3s or 3v2s or 3v3s, you're going to play them all differently. And depending on what champions you're facing, right? If you're facing the Evelyn who's going to burst you, or like a Nautilus Yasuo combo, you're going to be further back. If you're facing Inting, Singed, and Ezreal, you're going to be in the front line, right?
Yep.
So you have lots of different options as far as what you actually are going to do when fights start. So you need to be choosing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sorry, I was just distracted by how fucking terrible that Singed was for a sec. Yeah,
he was pretty bad.
He was real bad. Yeah, I'm with you though.
So it's that you need to be preparing for team fights by step 1 is doing the math. How many allies are here? Which is a very easy question to answer, right? If you're looking at the map. How many enemies are here? That is a slightly more difficult one because enemies can hide. And if an enemy is MIA and you don't know where they are, they count.
Right. That's basically what my next comment was going to be. Was I don't know if you were able to see it or if this feels true based on what you did see, but I feel like in terms of like team fight recognition, my problem is not so much the bad team fights. Like I can see when it's a pretty bad team fight when I have all the information in front of me. What the problem is literally what you're showing right now. I get fucking amped on that 2v1 and I go in and then it turns out that like Eve is in the bush and so then I'm just fucking dead. And
Yep.
more often than not, those are the fights that I'm fucking up on. Than it is the fights where it's like, okay, 3v2 Fed Galio, like, if he wants to engage, like, okay, maybe I'll follow up with an ult. Like those, I feel like I play pretty well most of the time. It's the ones that seem obvious in terms of like numbers advantages based on what's in the lane in front of me that more often than not I end up getting caught for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not that like in a 2v1 scenario like this, it's not that you don't follow Galio in. It's that you place a pink ward on yourself and you hold your ult to defend yourself from Evelyn, right?
Right. Right.
That's it. And
Yeah.
like so it's those little tiny differences, but it is absolutely that you need consistency. So you need to play around those situations. And when we think about it like that, we really see how valuable map awareness is. Because if you can say Evelyn was top 10 seconds ago, the worst place she could be is right there. We have like 10 more seconds before she can get here. Bam, we make the play, we run away bot side, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what lets us make that play is that map awareness. Does that
Right.
make sense?
No, 100%. Yeah.
So this is where all of your other thinking comes in because you should also be asking yourself not just what is the numbers, but who are the numbers, right? If me and Galio are fed as hell and these guys are not, it's time to go, right? If they're fed and we're not, it's time to leave. If their most fed person's here, that's bad. If our most fed person's here, that's good. If we have ultimates, that's good. If they have ultimates, that's bad. We add all of that in, but it starts with the math. So if
Yeah.
we are getting ourselves bogged down with those extra things without doing the fundamentals, we need to start with the fundamentals
Mm-hmm.
of do the math and add in those mystery numbers, right? And play them
Yeah.
differently according to what I call the worst case scenario, right?
Okay.
I want you to get a positive result in the worst case scenario. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what you're basically saying, like, all right, let's we got feeding singed and Ezreal there. I don't know
Yep.
if anyone. So we don't know where Yasuo is. So we're basically saying it's a 3v2 because we don't know where Yasuo is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm
Okay.
not going to run away from a 3v2, if I have my
Yeah.
Galio here, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I'm going to get flung into a Yasuo ult, right?
Right. But if it's like even and I'm standing with like clown face solution and we don't know where Yasuo is, we're running.
Then you run away.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's how we fight. It's about that preparation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So my final but very important bit of advice on my list here is being where the fight is.
Mm.
And this is so support players generally have a much easier time with this than mids and tops and jungles and 80 carries do. Because I asked you what your goal was, and you said I want to get this mountain, right?
Mm.
And your actions weren't 100% in line with the mountain, which is good because that's not the answer I was looking for, is kind of what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
The answer I was looking for is I want to be where the fight is. Because this is the problem that a lot of players run into is they say, like, this is what I see from sport players. I've literally seen this before. Well, Baron's the only objective that's up. Most of the towers are down. I'm going to go ward the Baron. And that is, a good call because, getting vision control of this area is good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, while they go here and they ward up this area, their team decides to pick a fight in the mid lane, right? Well, two people are hiding there and now they die. And now your wards that you intricately placed get to watch them take Baron, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem is, if you're going to ward mountain or do something in the name of the mountain and your team gets picked off, you lose the mountain, right?
Mm.
The most important decision you can make in the mid to late game at all elos is to be where the fight is. That is, predict where the fight's going to happen, because I'm not saying go to where the fight is. I'm not saying do whatever you want to do and then when a fight happens you head there. I am saying you are here.
Mm-hmm.
You are ready. They dive in, your ult's already going down, right? You're Dominion doing the fizz and all that great stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's that you need to predict. Well, this is the next question, right? Coach, I don't know if you've seen a gold game, but pretty random. Chimpanzees at keyboards on good days. So, like, how do I predict where fights are going to happen? And I have a counter question for you. Why do most shark attacks happen in shallow water?
Because that's where seals come out of the water, and that's where sharks normally hunt seals.
That is a decent answer, but I have a much simpler one.
Okay.
Because that's where people are.
Oh, all right.
And
yeah,
you can't have a shark attack a person if there's no people there, right?
Sure.
So we can't have a shark attack where there's no people. We can't have a team fight where there is no team, right?
Mm-hmm.
At worst in a game, there are 5 locations where a fight could happen. right?
Hmm.
That's if you're all spread up and, spread out and equally displaced.
Yeah.
That will never happen. You will have a top laner in top lane. You will have an amorphous blob of like 2 to 4 people roaming around, some people doing something, some others. And then we can also apply context to that, right?
Hmm.
Our mid laner just backed. They are on land. Shark attacks don't happen on land. Our jungle is at wolves, and we have lots of vision, like in the river. He's up to his knees. Could a shark attack happen? Absolutely. Will it? Probably not, right?
Yeah.
Our top laner's pushing their inhib. He's bleeding in the middle of the ocean. Where's the attack going to happen? Pretty obvious, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, it's not going to be this obvious all the time. It's going to be much more subtle. We are pushing here. He is at his raptors. We have no vision here. It's a little more, mysterious, or we don't exactly know where it's going to happen. But being in the right place, the right time is how we get those big plays off. Another thing that people don't really realize, maybe you would as a support more than an AD carry who's behind and is, woe is me.
Hmm.
But everything you do has value. If you go to a fight and you just eat a fizz ult and you die and you forgot to ult before you even died from the fizz ult, you helped that fight.
Yeah.
More so than if you were off warding Baron. Because now that's a fizz ult and a fizz combo that didn't hit your AD carry or your mid or your top or your jungle, and now they can fight better, right?
Yeah.
I now don't go saying, well, coach told me to eat fizz ult, so here I go, right? No. I would like you to dodge that fizz ult, because if fizz ults you and you dodge it or flash it, this fight now goes amazingly better than if you weren't here, right?
Right.
And if every skill shot that gets thrown at you that you eat or you dodge, fight goes better. Every heal you get off means that they have to put one more auto attack on that person, which is one more bit of danger, which is one more auto attack back on them, which means they have to flash away one auto attack sooner, which means this person lived, which means they didn't get a triumph proc, which means the whole fight is different because you healed one person one time, right?
Hmm.
Now, don't let me delude you into thinking that if I just press my W, I'm going to win every fight. No, you'll make a difference. Now, if that difference is, you lasted 2 seconds longer and still got aced, then that's the difference, right?
Yep.
But it's that it will go better. And that's the biggest thing you can do. I guess I haven't really explained the reason why this is so important. And other than like, you're going to lose Barons if you don't group. But let's also talk math real quick. Because you're a businessman, right?
Yeah, working on it, but yeah.
Yeah, when you do something like solo laners like to do and farm a side lane, a wave is worth 105 gold. 21, 21, 21, 14, 14, 14. If that's a cannon, then it's an extra like 60 or whatever. You get like 160 per wave.
Hmm.
If you get a tower, it's like 500 gold. That's pretty good. A little bit of map pressure, which is hard to value, but it's a little more than that, right?
Yep.
If you get other objectives, it has other value like that. But let's talk about a fight. Let's talk about a 1v1, right?
Hmm.
So when a 1v1 happens, let's talk. I like the Scuttle Crab fight that junglers get into all the time. How much gold trades hands at this Scuttle Crab fight early game, right?
First blood plus scuttle.
Yeah.
So...
Well, let's talk about a death. Let's just talk about a single death. So 300 gold
Mm-hmm.
plus assist gold, if there was any, plus bounty gold, if there wasn't any, or first blood gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the experience you give when you die. It's the gold you're missing out on because you're not farming when you're dead or when you're leaving your base. It's the experience you're missing out on for the same reason. It is the other kills that happen because you died and didn't have that pressure. It's the vision you gave up, and it's the objectives you gave up because you died. You will very, very, not 100% of the time, but very consistently be able to see when there is a 2-kill lead, kills are 600 to 1,000 gold. Because that's what was truly lost when this person killed them and got the scuttle and then farmed 2 camps and got a great back off while they limped to their camp to start farming again. That was about that much gold, right?
Yeah.
So you can say that a kill is 600 to 1,000 gold and a death is 600 to 1,000 gold. So let's say that your poor jungler here was going to lose and you decided, being a map-aware Sona player, that you'd stroll over here and, I don't know, press Q or exhaust or whatever and change the outcome. That was a 1,200 to 2,000 gold play you just made.
Yeah, okay.
Because you were in the right place at the right time. Now, if we apply that to team fights, even it might not be as obvious, because if the enemy goes 3-1 and you show up and make it 2-2, it was a 1,200 to 2,000 gold play. You saved one person, you killed one more, because Baron, they don't get Baron now, right?
Right.
They don't get a bunch of vision off this. They don't get to steal all of your camps after this play because it just went a little more even, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole point, is people think like AD carries think, well, I got to farm for my 4th item, otherwise it won't be useful. Like, everything about that statement was wrong. You need to be there and either absorb a bunch of skill shots, do what damage you can, be as useful as you can be, and then you go farm afterwards. And it's kind of like people just mix up their priorities. Your priority number one is to be at that fight, predict where it's going to happen, be there, make as big of a difference as you can. In a bad fight, you're going to help someone escape. In a good fight, we're going to get every kill possible, right?
Yep.
And then after that, now we're developing vision. Now we're doing what we want to do. Now we're getting, efficient recalls off when we have our sensor or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I guess.
Any questions on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not directly related to this, but I think it does sort of factor into this conversation somewhat. And we see it a lot, particularly at like gold and then starting in at platinum as well. And it's more of a top lane question, but it is something that I think plays into team fights. So I'm just going to ask it, which is that, like, let's say hypothetically we have like a top lane losing really hard to like a Fiora or like a Jack. Yeah, I guess Jax. Fiora, Jax, Lane, Yi, things like that. And they get like a real hard like solo lane push going, and we don't have. I mean, we could even have like a duelist or someone else who can meet them in the lane, but it's just like they're so far behind that it's very difficult to deal with. I guess particularly from the support like standpoint, like okay, like I'm rotating to make this 2v1 happen, but in the process, weak side of the play, Fiora's taking tier 2 tower and top lane and like pushing into inhib. What is the rationale, or how do you make yourself feel better, or what do you do just generally to like deal with a situation like that? And it's a pretty specific question, I know, but
no, people ask that all the time. That's a horribly frustrating thing to be in for AD carries and supports, because you're not really the one that gets to solve that, right? It's like jungle and top that should be going over there killing that person, right? Or something like that.
Right.
But the things you can do is, first of all, just realize the situation, right? If they have someone over here and your Jax or whatever is grouping with you, then it's time to go, right?
Yeah. Okay.
They have 4 people here. We have 5, or if we have some sort of outnumber, it's time to go. And like the sooner we wait to make this happen, the more shit he's gonna get over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's time to flash in. It's time to ult. It's time to get this fight going, because it's going to be well. And if we can win it hard enough, then we can neutralize this pressure, right?
Yep.
The other thing, like you said, is the rotate play. Now, as far as I'll give you this answer, the biggest brain thing that you can do is sweep and ward this area. Because that's what keeps them safe. When they're pushing here and they have like a pink ward here, like I guess I can do that in this tool. If they have a pink ward here and a ward here, Fiora just starts running away whenever you guys are going to gank her, right? Mm-hmm. But if you go and clear those out, now it becomes a much riskier game for her to push up super far.
Right.
Super fast.
Right.
The other thing that goes into that is you want to try and spend a lot of time in the fog of war. And this is actually a tip throughout the game. I just didn't notice it as a big problem in your gameplay, because mostly we had to hide behind minions this game, and we can't challenge bushes versus Nautilus. But
or really against anyone.
You pretty much want to be in the middle of the lane as Sona.
Yeah.
But, when you are MIA, when you are in the fog of war, you are MIA. You are in the bush waiting to cheese them, as well as recalled already and running back to lane, as well as ganking mid, so we have to spam ping our mid laner, right? And you're like taking the scuttle crab, or you're on dragon, I guess, and they have to choose which one you are. Mm-hmm. When you're sitting here instead of here as Sona, you're rotating on them and pressuring them, as well as being at this fight. Do you know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, that's
so trying to be in the fog of war is a really subtle thing you can do as well, but it's kind of mostly the best thing you can do is like, clear out their vision so that we can make rotate plays and not waste our time, right?
Yeah.
That answer it for you?
Yeah. Just so like, I mean, what I'm getting is like basically if we have good warding in our jungles in general and we're sweeping correctly, this is going to be much less likely to occur to begin with.
Yeah. It's still going to occur. You're still going to get like, Trindamirs that just
they don't give a shit and they just yeah.
But like that's how you kind of prevent it, and it's also just that you have to be willing to like make this play and go in and start this fight off if it's good for you, right?
Right. And we don't even necessarily have to rotate. We're not even necessarily rotating to actually engage it. We're just pretending.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No, I think that was sort of the big one I had, just in terms, because I particularly at low elo when I'm playing, or when I say low elo I mean like less than gold. When I'm playing like Garen top, that's just what I do, right? Is I'll just like basically win the one-on-one top lane and just run it down top lane until I get an inhib, and then rotate to bot lane and do the same thing. So yeah, I was just curious. Cool.
Well, any other questions? Because I'm kind of out of my things.
I mean,
I have more stuff I could talk about, but this is kind of the shortened 2-hour version. You know what I mean?
yeah.
You can see how 3 hours would be quite a bit to handle.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah. I'm sort of at a point where I think, like I said, you've given me a lot. I think honestly, giving me like 3 or 4 in depth would have been more than enough, just because I fully like appreciate with my own just brain that this sort of thing and then playing are almost like two different people.
Yeah.
And the only thing that will like remedy that is to like literally either have a notepad open in my second screen and like reference it before I get in game and reference it like even during my backs and stuff, or to just like focus on one or two almost exclusively along with my sort of standard play at a time until I feel like, hey, I'm able to ping now and I'm not fucking dying every time I do it. So like that's great. Maybe we can move on to something else. So I think you've given me a ton here. I don't think that. Uh, I guess one question I did have actually has again nothing to do with what we're talking about. It's an itemization question, and it's one that I see a lot of higher elo players do a lot. Specifically ADs, top lanes, to a lesser degree mid lanes, which is when again really random, but I'm just curious. Double Dorans or double Dorans rings or swords. When and why would you do that? Is it just a snowball like a first blood kill?
Not necessarily. You can. It's basically like an investment on a dueling or early game character. You see it like you used to. The big thing was MF, right? MF would stack Dorans. You'd get like 3 or 4, honestly.
Yeah.
But the whole point was, once you have an MF with 3 or 4 Dorans, you're not going to out sustain her. She has 12% lifesteal.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to kill her because she has like 1,000 health at level 3, right?
Yeah.
And you're not going to trade her because she's MF anyway, right?
Right.
So it becomes very difficult to deal with her. And yeah, you have a pickaxe. She has 2 extra Dorans, but you lose the ability to have cryo bot, and you lose the ability to wave manipulate. You lose the ability to trade unless it's hyper favorable, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the point. And honestly, it still could work. Like I have no doubt that like because Sona's a late game character, I have Sona's thing up, and I don't read too much into these stats or anything like that. Don't take this as
I'm laughing because I literally spent an entire stream on my stream going through this page. But go on.
So like I have no doubt that Gathering Storm is fucking amazing on Sona, because if Sona makes it to 30 minutes, you just lose, right?
Yeah.
Like you would lose normally, and now with Gathering Storm, you're super losing, right?
Right.
But at the same time, most pros, most people that play solo queue swear by early game runes. You don't take Transcendence, you take Absolute Focus. You don't take Gathering Storm, you take Scorch. Right. Because if you win early game, you automatically scale harder than them now, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter if you're Sona, if you've gotten killed 7 times by Nautilus is going to be tanky and you're not, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the point, is if we use our runes, if we use our items to win early game, we get to our items later. And that's what MF used to do, is if I buy 3 Dorans, I'm going to now, like, I'm already an early game champ. Now I'm an unmanageable early game champ, and I'm going to get whatever items I want anyway, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't always work out all the time, because if you buy Dorans and then you die, and now he has BF pickaxe,
right.
like Doran spam, now it's really awkward, and then you're selling them to buy shit. And it doesn't always work out, but that's kind of the premise, is if I get my early game strong, then I'm going to scale like inevitably.
Right. I mean? No, yeah, totally. That totally makes sense. Cool.
Any other questions?
No, I think that's really it. I think a lot of what we talked about here is sort of, just gotta take it into the games, and just see what happens.
Yeah. And so, as far as like your problem with kind of doing it, right? Mm-hmm. The whole thing is you have to go into a game in order to practice. That's why you are there. You're not here to win this game. You're not here to get LP. You're not here to do, accomplish your goal in this game. You are here to get better at exhaust usage, if that's what you want to do, right? Yeah, and if exhaust usage is, it's a 210 second cooldown, if that's small enough where you think you could do something else, okay, I'm going to focus on my clean auto attacks as well as my exhaust usage. That's what I'm here for. Mm-hmm. And I'm less map aware. I'm less aware in lane. I'm not poking as much. That's fine. Because if we improve that skill and get it better over the course of like 5 games, Then we go back to playing normally, and now we, you know, move much better and exhaust much more purposefully. We're a better player, and that's what it's all about, right? So it's really, you have to commit to isolating that skill. You have to commit to going to soccer practice and doing a drill while we play the game, you know?
Yep. Right.
That makes sense?
Totally. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate you rescheduling because that helps me a lot.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm glad this worked out today. Anything else you want to talk about? I'll copy paste that for our notes.
Oh yeah, thank you. No, I think that's pretty much it. We can, you know, sync up about like hours and next steps and stuff. But I think, yeah, from where I'm sitting between, you know, your session and the other coach, very different approaches, which was awesome too. His was much more like in the moment, like macro based, and yours I think was a little bit more like specific around like, you know, where and lane, why. So it's a good combination for me. I think it's just like taking like 2-3 weeks and just like playing with these things in mind. Literally, like I just said, with like a notepad open and like you just said, like going through, being like, okay, number 10, we got through 1 through 9. Here we go, number 10, and just working on them. So there's no shortcut there. Yeah, there's no shortcut.
The goal isn't to do it perfectly. The goal is to do it better than you did a week ago.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And if you know you eat like 3 SQs instead of 6, that's great. That's progress. Right? And that's how we're a better player now. So
yeah. Cool.
One last thing I need from you is, can you book 2 hours on the site?
Yeah, for sure.
Random time.
Yeah, for sure. I got you.
We'll be all set.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Cool. I'll do that
and if
now.
you have any questions, like, you know, you see like someone else message me, questions are always free. Hit me up on Discord, and
cool.
Questions are always free. So
sounds good. We'll do. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye. Cool. Well, I hope that was helpful for you guys. It was obviously helpful for me. It was a shit ton of stuff to even begin to try and wrap your head around in terms of like how are we gonna actually use this to improve. But I feel like there was a lot of like just good basic tips that he provided. I will put